can question that I'm asking you guys, and maybe someone can give me an answer, is what's the point? Why would he do this? What's the point of someone coming and saying, "Oh, okay, thank God," just to get a free meal? You know, what's the point? Why cause this? Why cause a situation where someone's just saying thank you to God because he doesn't want to pay for the meal, or because you said. So you say Baruch Hashem, okay, Baruch Hashem, thank you, bye. What's the point? What are you gaining over here? Does anyone have an idea? So,
I think it's Rebecca.
yeah, go ahead, Rebecca.
I don't really know, but I just think it's about relationship.
Okay, very good.
Having a relationship with Hashem.
Okay.
And so just inviting that.
Beautiful. That's a great thought. And it's actually similar to what I'm going to say, which is it's like advertising. So when a new concept is introduced to, let's say, the market, the initial step of advertising is to basically get that word into your mouth, get this product into your vocabulary, and make it a household word. And that's the first step before you even get someone to buy into it and put their money down or whatever it is. You want them to know about such a thing. So in a sense, what Avraham is doing is the world is in a place where, okay, there's a few believers, but no one knows about them, right? Avraham is the first person to go out into the world. And he's opening up his doors, right? And everyone that comes through is an idol worshiper. They used to bow down and pray to the dirt on their feet. They were pagan, yeah? They sacrificed children and etc., etc. So what Abraham was trying to do is cause people to know that there is a God, right? To go back and say, oh, wait a minute, there is something there. Maybe we can think about that. So, Catherine, is it about making an acknowledgement by thanking God in public? So that's a good observation. And yes, there is an aspect to that. Avram, that's a concept called Kiddush Hashem, which is when you sanctify God's name in public. And that's what Avram accomplished with a lot of his things, like being thrown into the fire and not being burnt by the king Nimrod, who made Avram bow down to him, and Avram refused, so he threw Avram into the fire. So that was an extremely big Kiddush Hashem, and Nimrod himself became a believer, and there's a story about that. But this specifically is more about let's get the word God on people's tongues. Let's get it. Let's have it become a thing, right? That people go home and people, even if they do it in a laughy way, right? But they say, there was this guy who I ate by, and he made me say, God, that's already something. We're getting somewhere. That was Avram's goal. Now, Avram I'll get back to this in a sec. Now, Avram's son Yitzchak, who was his continued this message. Yitzchak, his attitude was very different. Yitzchak wasn't just standing there and saying, okay, say thank God and you get a free meal. Or just, give. He wasn't doing that. He was a realist. Like, if you wanted to become a student of Yitzchak, you really had to work on yourself. You really had to internalize it. You had to become a better person. There was no freebies with Yitzchak, with Isaac, Yitzchak didn't travel around like Avram and reach out. He sat in his place, and you had to come to him, and he would teach. Yeah, he would you would study, but it wasn't like Avraham, and that's why the Medrash tells us that Avram's converts, so the people which Avram brought, when Yitzchak came around, a lot of them left and went back to the idols. The reason is because Yitzchak demanded so much. With Avram, there was this, all-inclusiveness. So in Kabbalah, this is Chesed and Gvura, which is the first two attributes of godliness and of our soul. Chesed is kindness, and Gvura is stringency or limitation, holding back. So Chesed, kindness, is just about giving, regardless on the situation and the standard of the receiver. It doesn't matter who the receiver is. I give without thinking. That's Avram. That's total kindness, total Chesed. Yitzchak is the Gvura, limitation. He would hold back. You had to work on yourself. You had to dig deep. And he was very strict. Now, that's, extreme Chesed is no good. Extreme Gvura is no good. Jacob came along, Yaakov came along, and he was Tiferet, which is the balance between Chesed and Gvura, which is the third of the 10 attributes of godliness in Kabbalah. And Tiferet means beauty, balance, harmony. When two opposites work together to create a balance of something beautiful, that's Yaakov, right? But we're not talking about Yaakov now. We're talking about Avram mainly and Yitzchak a little bit. Now, an example of Chesed, pure Chesed, would be if your child is screaming because he wants a knife. This is an extreme example. Giving him the knife is Chesed. Giving your little toddler a dangerous knife is Chesed because he's crying, so you give. So Chesed is about the giver, not about the receiver. It's about just giving and giving and giving, regardless who the receiver is, or just giving money to a friend, which keeps on spending it on bad things, right? You have a friend, for example, who has problems with addiction or whatever, and you know that the money goes to that. So, and he asks you for a favor. He says, "Can I have $100?" So giving him the money, that is Chesed, but it's not good Chesed because it's just Chesed. Gvura is constantly analyzing the receiver and seeing if he deserves it. Nothing above what you deserve. You don't get anything more than what you deserve. That, for example, with a child is no good either. A child has to feel that sometimes the parent, because I love you, you get, and it doesn't matter, even if you don't deserve. You're always getting hugs, regardless, for example. Now, obviously, Tiferet, we said, is the balance between these two things. Now, Avram's Chesed, right? Back to Avram. Avram is Chesed. He's giving. He's the giver. He doesn't look who's coming into his tent. He's just there to provide and to give and to regardless, right? He doesn't even make you try too hard. Yitzchak comes along and Yitzchak's Gvura. Yitzchak makes sure that this message is real. He makes sure you really work on yourself. Now, Rebecca writes, was Aram converting people, or is it just a descendant? Okay, so that's the next topic we're getting to. I'm spending a bit too long over here, but Avram is considered the first Jew because he fulfilled the mission of the Jewish people. He was the first person to do what the Jews are here for, and that is not to just shelter ourselves and be alone and just nurture our relationship with God, but to go out there and be a light unto the nations. If you ever heard of that. Now, why do I say this connected to the public menorah lighting? Because the Lubavitcher Rebbe came out with a campaign of putting out public menorah lightings, public menorahs everywhere. Now, why don't you just light the menorah at home? What's the point of bringing it out to the street and lighting it? Because this is the very message of Hanukkah and the very message of us as a people. We're here to bring the light to the world. That's why we are here, right? And that's why Avram, and not Noach, and not Adam, is the first Jew. That's why God chose Avraham. Now, this leads us to the next question. Avraham's students, right? Were they Jewish? Who was Jewish then? Because nowadays we know that if someone's mother is Jewish, that makes them Jewish. When did this start? So how do we know God chose Avraham? The answer to that is, I think, in the verse that I had just, which I just shown. Avram will become a great and powerful nation because we know that God chose Avram because of the story, mainly. Meaning, if you read the story of what happens, so the story starts with, the story really starts with God telling Avram to do something, right? The whole childhood of Avram is not spoken about in the Torah at all. This is the Midrash. What we read is Parashas Noach, in the portion of Noach, in the end of the story of Noach, it says Avram showed up. At the end of the parashas, Avram was born. Then the next parasha, the next Torah portion, Avram's already in his 70s. And it says, God tells Avram, go from your house, and from your father's house, and from your hometown, to the land where I will show you. And God then promises Avram the land of Israel. God makes a covenant with Avram. So God chooses Avram. You see that in the Torah as the start of his nation. God also promises Avram that he will be the father of a nation. This is also after he does the circumcision. Now, these 70 years, the Midrash fills in for us. The Midrash tells us the story of what was so special about Avram, the 10 tests, and his childhood, and his realizations about one God, etc., etc. Now, back to our question about the how Judaism really works. So, in those days, back in the time of Avraham Avinu actually kept the Torah as we know it. He kept the commandments. Now, he didn't do the mitzvot as we do them, right? It didn't look the same. So the Talmud tells us about Yaakov wearing tefillin. Has anyone seen tefillin? They are leather straps that go around your arm and on your head. And it says that Yaakov did tefillin with the sticks. If anyone remembers the story about the sheep with Lavan, when Yaakov was leaving, Jacob's leaving Lavan, his uncle, and he needs to take with him the sheep, and there's a whole back and forth about the striped sheep or the patched ones or the dotted sheep. And the story is that Yaakov was causing these things to happen with his stick. So the Talmud tells us that that Yaakov did the tefillin with this stick. Like the same energy that would happen with tefillin happened with the sticks, with the action that he was doing. So they didn't do the same physical actions, but they did the mitzvot that we do, they did as well. But it was a family, right? So Avram is the father of a family. The Jews were just a family then. And you became a Jew by believing in God, right? Because that we revolutionized monotheism. It was Avram's thing. So by believing in one God, you became a Jew. That was it. Actually, possibly mikveh as well. You did, and if you were a man, you did circumcision. So that's why Avraham gave a circumcision to all his servants, and he was a very wealthy person. To all his servants.
Why do you have a background?
Because I like it. All his servants circumcised as well, and Sarah, she thinks she converted the others, but that was just it was you believe in God, you're a Jew. It's not a genetic thing. Your kids wouldn't be Jews just because they were born to you. Then, by the giving of the Torah on Mount Sinai, that is when God chose the Jewish nation to be his nation. And we'll get to that. What does it mean to chose a nation? But it became a nation. The Jewish people, when they left Egypt, became a nation. They came into Egypt as a family, and they left Egypt as a nation. And once the Torah is given on Mount Sinai, you are genetically a Jew if you're born to a Jewish mother. Right? Now, before that didn't exist. And you need to convert if you want to become a Jew. But once the Torah was given, once you're born a Jew, you can't become a non-Jew. Yes. So, in regard to a chosen, we say God chose the Jewish nation. So, I'll take a few steps back, and I will. I'll explain what we mean by that. When you have two things, which one is superior to something else, and you choose the superior thing, you haven't really chosen the superior thing, because there's something really strongly inclining you to choose the superior thing. It's not considered free choice. For example, if I were to offer you $1 million or $100, I think we would all choose the million, and it's not like we really have free choice over here. So Avraham was chosen by God, but not really, because he was chosen because of his good deeds. He lived up to a certain standard. He, against all odds, was a believer in God. Despite his family and his neighborhood and his culture and where he came from, he believed in one God. So God chose him. Now, the Jewish nation is chosen not because we're superior. The Jewish nation is chosen because we're the same. We're not superior. When we say we're chosen, what we mean is that we are chosen to accomplish a certain mission in the world. Right? So God has something he wants to accomplish over here, right? And he chose the Jewish nation to represent him in this mission. And it's more of a responsibility than anything else. Let's just say you are friends with a king, right? Or like a very popular person, a celebrity. So you can become haughty because of it. It can make you feel egoistic. But if the closer you get to God, like the more relationship you have to an infinite God, the more humble you become. So if saying that I'm chosen by God is only going to make you more humble, if you look at it properly. Avram knew he was chosen by God, but he became even more humble because of it. Moses, it says in the Torah that he was the most humble person to ever live. Moshe, how can Moshe be so humble? He took the Jews out of Egypt, he brought the 10 plagues. What is it about Moshe? How can he? So the explanation is that Moshe understood that everything he had was a gift. He knew his advantages. He didn't fool himself and say, "Oh, I'm no good. Oh, I'm no good." He knew his strengths, but he thought, "Hey, if someone else had these strengths, they'd do a way better job." It was a gift from God. But feeling close to God from Moses made him even more humble. And the same thing with the Jewish people. We say every Friday night, when we make Kiddush, we'll make the Kiddush on the wine, we say, and he chose us from all other nations. And on the holidays, we say that as well. And it's true. But the attitude that one has to have is not, that makes me superior, God forbid, right? But it is, I am chosen for a mission. I have a mission, a job, and it's a responsibility. And it's a good responsibility to have. I'm supposed to enjoy it, but I have to work, I can't just say, okay, I'll just be a bystander and fit in with everyone else. So Avram would have been righteous in God's eyes, and that's also why he was chosen. Absolutely. So Avram's chosen for his righteousness, right? But his descendants, by the giving of the Torah by Mount Sinai, are chosen not because of their righteousness. The Jews that left Egypt were not righteous. And it actually, not at all. When the Red Sea fell onto the Egyptians, the Midrash tells us that the angels were saying to God, drown the Jews as well. They're just idol worshippers as well. Why are you saving them? And not them? Well, God, for whatever reason, chose to select the Jewish nation for the mission that Avraham started, the descendants of Avraham, and this is a huge responsibility, and Avraham started this, and that's why he was chosen. Now, I'm just looking back at the questions that Rebecca wrote, and yes, Noach's descendants. Noach was not Jewish. His descendants were not Jewish. The world existed for 2,000 years without Jews. To say that the world needs it's hard, I don't know how to say this, but to say that as the world itself needs the Jews as a world is incorrect, because it's ridiculous to say that the world existed for 2,000 years, 99.9% of the population are, not the focus. That's obviously not true. And neither do Jews believe that non-Jews should become Jews. God doesn't make mistakes. And if he made someone born into a different faith, our goal is not that everyone should become Jews. There are some other religions which think that, but that's not how we look at it at all. It's very, 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 absurd to say that God created, billions of people with the wrong birthright, with the wrong place. You know what I mean? If an individual feels a calling and a connection to the Jewish nation, so that person can consider joining, converting, but to say that people should become Jews, absolutely not. The children of Noach are supposed to be the children of Noach and keep the 7 Noahide laws and keep society and the world a good place full of goodness and kindness, and create goodness. And all right, so I think we're kind of done for today. Next time, I missed out a bit from the questions, and the next thing was a little bit more controversial, and that is, what does the Talmud say about non-Jews, and what is the Jewish attitude to non-Jews and stuff like that? So we'll get a bit more into it next week. But what I think as a summary from today is that the reason why Avram was chosen to be the founder and the father of the Jewish people is because the mission of the Jewish people is to do exactly what Avram did. And that is to go out there and spread the light. To be a menorah, a big candelabra outside. We're coming from Hanukkah, and the mitzvah of menorah originally is supposed to light at the window. And also when it gets dark. And the reason is because you're supposed to light up the darkness, the spiritual darkness, and you do it at the windows, so it spreads the light outside. The windows of the temple in Jerusalem were like this. They were thin on the inside, narrow on the inside, and wide on the outside. And the reason is so the light from the temple spreads out to the world. So that's why Avram was chosen to be the first Jew. And that's our job as well. Noach was a believer, Adam was a believer, Chava was a believer, but they stuck to themselves. They weren't there to share the light. And that's the uniqueness of Avraham. And then we also touched a little bit upon the difference between Avram and Yitzchak. Avram's Chesed, Yitzchak's Gvura, which is just the giving and the spreading of light without any calculations or reserving or without any limitations. And Yitzchak was the opposite, and Yaakov was the balance between them all. Anyways, thank you very, very much, everyone. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask.
Thanks, Ashi.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Oh, yeah. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Bye-bye.
Shabbat Shalom.